Welcome to Chapter 1, Understanding the Overthinker's Mind. Let me ask you this. Have you ever lain awake at night, replaying a conversation in your head, wondering if your words hurt someone? Or maybe you've spent hours preparing for a decision, only to find yourself paralyzed by doubt, terrified of making the wrong choice? If these scenarios sound familiar, then you are not alone. Today, we're going to unravel the mystery of overthinking, not just to name the problem, but to understand it so deeply that you can finally stop letting it control you. Let's begin with clarity. What is overthinking? It's not simply thinking deeply or carefully. Overthinking is a mental loop, a trap where your brain fixates on a problem, cycles through endless what-ifs and if-onlys, and refuses to let go. It's the voice that tells you, what if I mess up? What if they don't like me? What if this one mistake ruins everything? And the cruel irony. The more power you give this voice, the less control you have over your thoughts, and the more exhausted, anxious, and ineffective you become. The roots of overthinking dig deep into psychology, and to understand it, let's travel back in time, not decades or even years, but millions. Our brains evolved to survive in a world where threats were real and immediate. A rustle in the trees might mean a predator. A wrong step could mean death. In this context, overthinking had value. Hypervigilance, caution, and analysis kept our ancestors alive. But here's the twist. Modern life doesn't hit us with saber-toothed tigers, but our brains still interpret stress in the same primal way. You overthink a project deadline, as if it's a life-or-death battle, or obsess over a social interaction, as if your survival depends on it. What once saved us now undermines us. Let me tell you a story about Alex. Alex is a talented graphic designer with a passion for creativity. One day, their boss asked them to lead a major client presentation. Excited but nervous, Alex spent days refining every detail. They rehearsed the pitch, adjusted the slides, and even visualized the flow of the meeting. But after it happened, all they could do was replay one awkward pause, one moment where the client seemed distracted. For days, Alex's mind looped over the same question. Did I sound unprepared? Did they think I was lying about the project timeline? What if they walk away? The anxiety didn't fade. Instead, it spiraled. They began avoiding team meetings, doubting their own skills, and even developing migraines by the end of the week. Sound familiar? If you've ever felt trapped in a cycle of what-ifs, know this. Your brain is not your enemy, but it needs guidance. Let's dissect how this cycle works. Overthinking thrives on two key factors: uncertainty and anxiety. When your mind faces ambiguity, say an unclear response from a loved one, a vague email from your boss, or a sudden change in plans, it jumps into overdrive, trying to create order from chaos. That's where anxiety steps in. Anxiety, you see, is the fuel that keeps the overthinking engine running. It convinces you that your thoughts are emergencies to be solved, not patterns to be observed. Imagine your brain as a spotlight. Normally, it illuminates only the present task at hand. But for overthinkers, the spotlight becomes a floodlight, blinding and unrelenting. You see every flaw, every mistake, every possible future gone wrong. And when you're stuck under that blinding glare, it's impossible to see clearly. Now let's explore common triggers of overthinking. First, perfectionism. Perfectionists believe that if they think deeply enough, anticipate all outcomes, and plan meticulously, they can avoid failure. But perfectionism is a lie dressed as protection. It convinces you that your worth is tied to your ability to outthink every obstacle. Second, fear of judgment. What would others think if they saw my mistakes? How will people perceive me if I'm not perfect? Third, past wounds. If you've been criticized, betrayed, or rejected before, your brain may have learned that overthinking is a defense mechanism, a way to prepare for the worst. And finally, uncertainty. When the future feels unpredictable, overthinking becomes a futile attempt to control what's uncontrollable. But here's the truth. Overthinking doesn't solve problems. It multiplies them. That's because your brain, when stuck in a loop, stops learning and starts reenacting. You replay the same thoughts without gaining new insights. Worse, you begin to believe that your overthinking is the root of your intelligence or creativity. It's not. It's just your brain in default mode, meant for reflection, not action, and it's being hijacked by fear. So how do we start breaking this cycle? The first step is self-awareness. And to do that, you must recognize the signs of overthinking in your own life. Are you obsessing over a past event long after it's over? Are you making decisions only to reverse yourself minutes later? Do you feel mentally exhausted with no clear progress? If so, your mind is stuck in a loop. But don't panic. Understanding this cycle is already a victory. You're not just a passive victim of your thoughts. You are the navigator who now holds the map. In this chapter, you've learned that overthinking is a primal survival mechanism, misfiring in the modern world. You've seen how anxiety powers the loop and how triggers like perfectionism or past trauma keep it alive. Most importantly, you now know that the first step to freedom is awareness. Your brain has given you this challenge for a reason, to teach you that you are more than your thoughts. You are the observer, the one who can pause, breathe, and choose a new response. In the next chapter, we'll tackle the next step, breaking the cycle of rumination itself. For now, I want you to carry this truth. You are not your thoughts. You are the one who can choose when to engage and when to let go. As you finish this chapter, take a moment to reflect. What's one situation in which you've recently overthought? Write it down, not to dwell on it, but to acknowledge it, and then remind yourself. The moment you notice the cycle, you have already taken your first step toward calm. You've probably experienced it. Those endless loops of what if and why me that swirl in your mind like a broken record. Overthinking doesn't just drain your energy, it steals your peace. And yet, here's the empowering truth. You don't have to be a prisoner to your thoughts. Together, we're going to break the cycle of rumination, not by fighting your thoughts head-on, but by learning to redirect them with the precision of a skilled surfer riding waves, instead of being crushed by them. Let me tell you about a man named Alex, who once called me in a panic. For weeks, he'd been replaying a single conversation with his manager, convinced he'd said the wrong thing and was doomed to lose his job. Every time he closed his eyes, the scenario played again and again. He was exhausted, but here's what shifted for him. I asked him to imagine his thoughts as clouds passing through a sky. He didn't have to chase them or eliminate them. He simply had to notice their shape, then let them float by. That act of mindful distance created the first crack in the wall of his rumination. So let's dive into the neuroscience. Your brain isn't designed to ruminate. It's designed to survive. When you fixate on negative thoughts, your default mode network, the part of the brain responsible for mind-wandering and self-referential thinking, goes into overdrive. But here's the breakthrough. Studies show that grounding techniques activate your prefrontal cortex, the brain's command center for focus and decision-making. That means when you anchor yourself in the here and now, you're not just calming down emotionally, you're reprogramming your brain's habit loop. Let's get practical. Right now, yes, right now, take a moment to practice the 5-4-3-2-1 grounding technique. Name 5 things you can see around you. Maybe a cup, a computer screen, the light from a lamp. Now, identify 4 things you can touch. The texture of your chair, the fabric of your clothing, the coolness of your drink. 3 things you can hear. The hum of your device, maybe birdsong, or traffic in the distance. 2 things you can smell. Is there coffee, perfume, the freshness of a breeze? And 1 thing you can taste. The lingering flavor of your tea, the dryness in your mouth. I'll wait. Done? Feel the shift? That isn't just a trick. It's a neurological reset. But don't just stop there. We need to refocus that energy. Every time a what-if thought pops up, replace it with a task. I'm not talking about distractions. I'm talking about directed attention. Count backwards from 100 by 7s in your head. It's a simple math challenge that hijacks your brain's need to analyze, or read a paragraph out loud, not just silently, but aloud. Your mouth becomes a second processor, giving your brain 0 room to loop. Let me share another revelation. Your body can help you outsmart your mind. Science shows that movement interrupts rumination faster than anything else. Stand up now and march in place if you have to. Jump. Stomp your feet. Physical activity floods your brain with oxygen and sends a message. You're safe. Now pay attention to the body. I know a runner who discovered this the hard way. She used to obsess over relationship regrets during her training, until she realized that the moment she focused on the rhythm of her breath, the cadence of her steps, and the feel of the wind against her skin, her mind finally shut up. Here's how we turn this into a lifelong strategy. Create your own anchor phrase. Pick a phrase that jolts you back to the present. This too will pass. Focus on what I can control. I am here now. Repeat it every time you feel the spiral beginning. Make it as simple as stop, drop, breathe. The goal isn't to erase your thoughts. It's to interrupt them long enough to create space for clarity. And let's talk about the stuckness of rumination. Your brain believes it's doing you a favor. You're just wired to analyze problems until they're solved. But what happens when there's no solution? That's when you must step in and say, no more time for this. Set a timer for 5 minutes to process your worry. Give yourself that time, and when the timer rings, you have a choice. Stop or move to action. This isn't dismissal, it's delegation. One final strategy from cognitive behavioral science. Ask yourself, is this thought helping me solve the problem or just helping me suffer more? More often than not, you'll realize your rumination is just emotional storytelling. You're not looking at facts, you're looking at fears, and fears are not forecasts. They are echoes of what your brain remembers, not what your life will become. You owe it to yourself to reclaim your freedom. Rumination is a cycle, but cycles can be broken. Every time you catch yourself, every moment you choose to ground, focus, or move, you're building a new pattern. You're proving to your brain that you are not defined by your thoughts. You are the observer, the captain, the one who decides which thoughts get a seat at the table and which get shown the door. So stand tall, take a deep breath. Right now, put your hand over your heart and remind yourself, you are stronger than your overthinking. You are more powerful than your spirals. And with every step you take, you're crafting a mind that's not just calm, but unshakably, beautifully free. You're not just here to read this chapter. You're here to transform. You're at the threshold of a practice that has reshaped lives for centuries. A practice that isn't about silence or emptying your mind, but about filling it with presence. This chapter, The Power of Mindful Awareness, is your invitation to become an observer of your own thoughts, to stop being swept away by the storm of overthinking, and to instead stand on the shore, watching the waves pass you by. Let me show you how that's possible. Imagine this. You're sitting at your desk, emails piling up, your phone buzzing with notifications, and your mind spiraling into worst-case scenarios. Your chest tightens. Your shoulders rise. You're trapped in a cycle of what-ifs and why me. But then, you pause. Just for a moment, you take a breath, and instead of fighting the tide of thoughts, you simply notice them. Oh, there's that fear again. I feel it in my jaw. I can watch it without being pulled under. That's mindfulness breaking through. This is what we're building here. Mindful awareness isn't just a concept, it's a skill. And every time you practice it, your brain changes. Neuroscientists have proved it. Regular mindfulness rewires the pathways responsible for anxiety and stress. It strengthens the prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain that thinks clearly and makes wise choices. But the science is just the starting point. The real magic happens when you use this skill daily. Let's walk through a simple routine right now. Close your eyes. Take a deep breath in through your nose for 4 counts. Hold it. Then exhale slowly through your mouth. Again. Feel the air enter your lungs, the weight of your breath grounding you. Now observe your thoughts without labeling them good or bad. If a thought says, I'm not doing enough, acknowledge it silently. Here's a thought about self-doubt. You're not getting rid of it. You're just making space between you and it. Here's the secret. Thoughts are just thoughts. They're not facts. When you stop reacting to them as if they're real, you reclaim power. I'll never forget a story from a client who shared this transformation with me. She was drowning in fear about an upcoming presentation. Her anxiety would escalate into full-blown panic attacks. But when she started practicing mindful observation, just noticing her fear without trying to fix it, something shifted. She realized, this panic is temporary. It's like a storm in my mind, and I don't have to drown. She began to breathe through it, to anchor herself in the present moment. And guess what? The panic didn't vanish overnight, but it lost its grip. Now let me teach you 2 tools you can use anywhere, anytime. First, the 5-sense anchor. When you're spiraling, reconnect with your body using your senses. Name 5 things you see in your surroundings, 4 things you can touch, 3 things you hear, 2 things you smell, 1 thing you taste. It's the 5-4-3-2-1 technique. Your mind can't be in the past and the present simultaneously. This practice is your lifeline when your brain tries to pull you back into that endless loop of, "What's wrong with me?" and "What if it all falls apart?" Second, the mini meditation ritual. Set your phone to vibrate at the same time every day. When it rings, give yourself 2 minutes to sit still. No rush. Just focus on your breath. If your mind wanders, which it will, gently return to your breath. That's the practice. 2 minutes. That's all it takes to begin rewiring your brain. Over time, these small rituals compound. They build a habit of presence that your overthinking mind simply never had. Here's where most people trip up. They think mindfulness means being perfect. I failed today because I didn't notice my thoughts enough. I'm not doing it right. But here's the truth. You aren't failing. Every time you notice a thought, you're succeeding. Every heartbeat that you choose presence over panic is a victory. Stop punishing yourself for the moments you didn't stay centered. That's what we call a self-judgment trap. To break free, replace "I messed up" with "Here's a chance to try again." I want you to try this. Right now, as you listen, pause and check in with your body. How is your posture? Are your shoulders relaxed, or do they mirror the tension in your mind? Can you feel your feet on the floor, or your back against the chair? This is sensory anchoring in action. You're grounding yourself. You're telling your nervous system, "I'm safe. This is the now." Let's talk about the emotional reactivity we're all taught. How we let a single critical thought snowball into a hurricane. Mindfulness doesn't remove your emotions. It changes your relationship with them. When fear arises, don't fight it. Don't try to fix it. Instead, say to yourself, "This emotion is here. It's asking for my attention." Observe it with curiosity. Where do I feel this in my body? What story is my mind telling me right now? You'll begin to see patterns. You'll notice when old wounds are resurfacing. You'll grow into someone who isn't ruled by emotions, but who honors them. And here's the final gift of mindful awareness. It teaches you to live fully. To savor the taste of your morning coffee, to feel the sun on your skin, to hear laughter around you. Overthinkers often miss life because they're too busy dissecting it. But when you anchor in the present, you begin to live with clarity. You start to see the beauty in ordinary moments. You begin to trust that you can handle whatever comes next. So I leave you with this. Pick one of these practices today, the 5 senses anchor, the mini meditation, the act of simply pausing before reacting. Do it once. Then do it again tomorrow, and the next. Progress isn't linear, but consistency is. Each moment you choose presence is a brick in the bridge to your calm, centered self. You are not your thoughts. You are the one who sees them and chooses how to respond. Now take that power, one breath at a time. Welcome to Chapter 4, Managing Emotions with CBT. This is the moment where you take charge of your inner world, where you learn to transform the chaos of unhelpful thoughts into a clear path forward. You are not here to escape your emotions. Emotions are your allies, messengers of truth. What we're here to master is the story you tell yourself about those emotions. That's where cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT, steps in. It's a roadmap to rewrite the narratives that keep you trapped in cycles of fear, doubt, and overwhelm. Let me share a story with you. Imagine someone, we'll call them Alex. Alex was constantly gripped by anxiety before presenting at work. Their mind would spiral. What if I freeze up? What if my boss thinks I'm unprepared? What if I embarrass myself in front of the team? These thoughts were automatic, like a broken record. What Alex didn't realize is that the real problem wasn't the presentation. It was the meaning they'd assigned to failure. CBT taught Alex to pause, dissect those thoughts, and ask, is this catastrophic story about my worth actually true, Or am I blowing this out of proportion to avoid discomfort? This is the power of CBT. It doesn't just treat symptoms, it re-engineers your mindset. Let's begin with a cornerstone of this practice: identifying distorted thinking. We all have cognitive distortions, mental shortcuts that twist reality to fit an unhelpful story. A classic example is catastrophizing. This one mistake will cost me everything. Another is black and white thinking. If I'm not perfect, I'm a failure. CBT gives you a magnifying glass to spot these distortions. Your first step is to keep a thought journal. Here's how you do it. Next time a stressful moment hits, write down exactly what happened. Then, jot down the automatic thought that followed, not your interpretation, but the raw, unfiltered voice in your head. Next, ask 3 questions. 1. What evidence supports this thought? 2. What evidence contradicts it? 3. What is a more balanced, realistic way to view this situation? Let's apply this to Alex's fear of failure. The automatic thought, I'll freeze up and ruin the presentation. Evidence supporting this? Maybe there was that one time during a meeting where Alex forgot their lines. But the evidence against? Alex has delivered solid talks before, and they've prepared for this. The balanced thought? I might feel nervous, but I've prepared well. My confidence will grow as I speak. This isn't about forcing positivity. It's about replacing rigid, unhelpful thinking with clarity. Now, let's talk about reframing. CBT teaches that you can't control every situation, but you can control how you interpret it. Suppose you're overwhelmed by a workload and think, I'm swamped. There's no way I can handle this. Reframe it by asking, what is the worst case scenario, and how likely is it to happen? What can I do today to move forward? You're not dismissing the challenge, but creating space between the problem and your reaction to it. Here's a guided exercise for immediate relief. Sit comfortably. Take 3 deep breaths. Now, replay a recent fear or anxious thought in your mind. Write it down exactly as it appeared. Underneath it, list the emotional impact: anxiety, dread, helplessness. Now, ask yourself, is this thought based on facts or fears? Often the answer is fears. Then ask, what's the most helpful way to reframe this? If the original thought was, I'm going to blow this opportunity, a healthier version might be, I want to do well, and I'm taking steps to prepare. If there's a setback, I'll learn and adapt. You're not deleting emotions. You're creating space for more accurate, empowering ones. Another CBT tool is the 5-4-3-2-1 grounding technique for moments when your mind feels untethered by anxiety. Use your senses. Name 5 things you see, 4 things you feel, 3 things you hear, 2 things you smell, and 1 thing you taste. This anchors you in the present, silencing the storm of overthinking. Try it now. Close your eyes and do it for 30 seconds. Feel the shift? That's your mind returning to the here and now. Let me leave you with this. CBT isn't a quick fix, but it is a lifelong skill. Every time you catch yourself in a spiral, you're not failing. You're practicing. Growth happens in these moments of awareness. You have within you the ability to rewrite the stories that bind you, to replace fear with curiosity, criticism with support, and hopelessness with clarity. When someone like Alex transforms their mindset, they don't stop caring about their work. They show up as a better version of themselves, lighter in the shoulders and clearer in purpose. So I urge you, begin today. Keep that thought journal by your side. Ask the questions I've shared. Reframe your self-talk like a coach encouraging an athlete. And remember this, your thoughts are not facts. They are simply one interpretation of reality. You are not your mind. You are the master of your mind. With CBT, you now hold the tools to reshape your emotional landscape, not to ignore life's turbulence, but to meet it with calm, courage, and clarity. Next time you feel the weight of overthinking, reach for these techniques. Let them guide you toward a place where your thoughts serve you, not sabotage you. Because when you manage your emotions with intentionality, you unlock a strength few know they possess. You are capable, you are growing, and you are ready to move forward. Let's continue together. You're here, ready to build a calm mindset, one that doesn't bow to chaos but thrives in clarity. This is where we stop reacting to life and start creating the conditions for peace. Chapter 5 is your blueprint to design a routine that sharpens your focus, nurtures your body, and calms your mind. Let me ask you, when was the last time you woke up feeling like a human, not a survival machine? I know someone, let's call her Maya, who lived for years trapped in a cycle of overthinking. She'd wake up exhausted, scroll through her phone half awake, grab whatever coffee she could find, and collapse into work. By evening, she'd be drained, irritable, and back under the mental pressure of replaying every mistake from the day. Sound familiar? Maya's turning point didn't come from a grand epiphany. It came from small, deliberate choices, like sleeping 7 hours straight and eating a plate of blueberries for breakfast. She realized her mind wasn't overthinking because she was anxious. No, her anxiety was a symptom of a body starved of proper care. That's the truth we'll unpack now. Let's start with a non-negotiable: sleep hygiene. Your brain needs deep, uninterrupted rest to function as designed. I'm not just talking about hours of sleep, but quality. Think of it this way. You wouldn't fuel a Ferrari with cheap gasoline and then complain about its performance. Your brain deserves better. Maya discovered that her nightly scrolling was sabotage. The blue light from her phone wasn't just keeping her awake. It was rewiring her brain to associate the bed with stimulation. She committed to this ritual. No screens 1 hour before bed. Instead, she read a physical book, dimmed her lights, and practiced 10 minutes of breathing in through her nose and out through her mouth. Within 2 weeks, her mind no longer felt like a hurricane at 2 a.m. It felt like a lighthouse, steady, clear, present. Now let's talk nutrition for brain health. You've heard the phrase, "you are what you eat." Let's rephrase it. You think how you eat. Every bite is a signal to your nervous system. Maya didn't dive headfirst into a keto cleanse or a juice fast. No. She asked herself, what does my brain need to thrive? Omega-3 rich foods like salmon, walnuts, and flax seeds became her new staples. Berries to boost antioxidants, leafy greens for dopamine support, and water, not for show, but as oxygen for her system. She started meal prepping on Sundays, not to starve creativity, but to free her mind from the daily tyranny of decision fatigue. The result? Her overthinking didn't stop. It dimmed. It became background noise, not the main event. But here's the secret that transformed Maya's life: movement-based stress relief. Exercise isn't just for your body. It's the most natural antidepressant, the clearest cognitive reset. She tried spinning, yoga, and even dance classes. But what worked best was something simple: walking barefoot in her yard during morning sunrises, the earth grounding her nervous system, the fresh air washing over her like a therapist's voice. Every 10 minutes of walking became 10 minutes of mental quieting. This is your call to action. Design a routine that aligns with who you want to be, not who you feel pressured to be. You don't need to replicate Maya's exact path. Build your own. Ask yourself, what sleep rituals will disconnect me from digital chaos? What foods will fuel my brain as fuel, not punishment? What movement will feel like joy, not obligation? Let me share a second story to prove this works. A friend of mine, let's call him David, used to overthink for hours every night. He'd lie in bed replaying every argument, every missed opportunity. Then he did something radical. He wrote a personal manifesto called The Calm Life Rulebook. In it, he declared that mornings would belong to his body and brain. He started with one non-negotiable, a 6 a.m. meditation practice, not because he wanted to be spiritual, because he needed 10 minutes of stillness to outwit his inner critic. He paired this with intermittent fasting, not to deprive himself, but to give his body time to reset daily. And every afternoon, a 20-minute walk in nature. He tracked his energy levels and noticed patterns. Sugar crashes, sleep gaps, and screen overload all spiked his anxiety. David didn't just manage his overthinking. He rewired the conditions enabling it. This is your invitation to do the same. Design a routine that isn't a patchwork of borrowed habits, but a tailored toolkit. Here's how to begin. 1. Sleep hygiene. Decide on a bedtime. Commit to it. If you wake up in the middle of the night, don't fight it. Gently return to your breathing. 2. Nutrition. Swap one food that causes clutter, like refined sugar, for one that brings clarity, like an avocado or a handful of almonds. 3. Movement. Find micro-workouts. Park farther away. Dance during chores. Walk during phone calls. I'll say this louder for the back row. This is not self-help. This is self-engineering. You are not trying to be good enough. You are building systems that make overthinking impossible. Let me challenge you with this. For the next 7 days, track 3 things. Bedtime and wake-up time. 1 brain-healthy food you ate. 1 form of movement you did. At the end of the week, ask yourself, how does my body feel? How does my mind feel? The answers will light the path forward. And if you hit a setback, celebrate it. Setback data is how champions win. Did your 7 a.m. meditation fall apart? Adjust it to 6:15 p.m. Did your lunch fail? Swap a processed snack for a brain-boosting alternative. You're not failing, you're calibrating. Remember Maya? She now leads a mindfulness group for professionals. David? He's written a blog on stress-free living. And you? You are 1 week from proving that calm is not a myth, but a habit. So let's get to work. Design a life where your brain is strong, your body is nourished, and your mind is free to think, create, and lead. The world needs your uncluttered genius. Let's build it, one mindful step at a time. Imagine for a moment that your mind is a sanctuary, a sacred space where clarity, peace, and creativity can thrive. But what happens when that space is constantly invaded by the noise of a chaotic world? Phones buzzing, notifications pinging, social feeds scrolling endlessly, all of it seeping into your thoughts like uninvited guests. This invasion becomes the fuel for overthinking. You might not realize it, but every scroll, every notification, every second spent comparing your life to the highlight reels of others pulls you deeper into the whirlpool of rumination. The truth is, external stimuli don't just distract you, they distort you, and you deserve to reclaim your mental sanctuary. This is where boundaries come in. Boundaries are not walls, they are bridges. They help you connect with what truly matters while filtering out what doesn't. And right now, we're going to talk about how to set these barriers to protect your mind, not with guilt or restriction, but with intention and empowerment. Let me share a story about someone we'll call Alex. Years ago, Alex was a passionate graphic designer, but their creativity had become a casualty of burnout. Their phone was a magnet for anxiety. Late at night, they'd check emails for hours, then slip into social media, comparing their achievements to others, questioning if they were enough. By morning, their mind was a storm of self-doubt. It wasn't until they realized their own mental energy was being drained by unnecessary external inputs that they decided to act. Alex started small, but with unwavering focus. They deleted apps that no longer served their well-being, turned off push notifications, designated phone-free times during the day and evening. At first, they craved distraction. That's normal. But as the days turned into weeks, they began noticing something remarkable, a newfound silence in their mind. The space once filled by overthinking now allowed reflection, curiosity, and peace to bloom. This is the power of boundaries, and you right now can begin crafting yours. Let's start with the digital detox. I know what you're thinking. I need my phone to function, and you do. But do you need it to function better? Let's make it work for you instead of against you. Begin by identifying apps that drain your mental energy. Are there platforms where you consistently leave feeling worse than before? Uninstall them, at least temporarily. If you can't do that, set strict time limits. Use your phone's built-in tools to cap social media usage. Turn off non-essential notifications. Replace them with ones that inspire you, maybe a meditation app, a learning platform, or a reminder to hydrate and breathe deeply. But here's what's even more powerful. Create tech-free zones and times. Your bedroom should be a sanctuary for rest and intimacy, not a hub for doom scrolling. Your dinner table should celebrate connections, not distractions. Try setting aside the last hour before bed as a digital sunset. No screens, no emails. Just you, the silence, and the gentle closing of your day. At first, it will feel uncomfortable, like you're losing control. But you're not. You're gaining it. Let's talk about managing overwhelm intentionally. I want you to grab a pen and paper, or open a note app, just no social media, and track your mental energy over the next 3 days. When do you feel most present? When do you feel most scattered? Use this awareness to design a schedule that respects your limits. If mornings are your sharpest time of day, book deep work then. If evenings are for you, protect that time with non-negotiable boundaries. Learn to say no to meetings, to obligations, to anything that steals your mental space. And for the love of your well-being, unplug from comparison. Social media is a carnival of curated content, not a mirror of real life. That 50 tips to fix anything article you see online? It's not a tool, it's a trap. The truth is, you've already got everything you need within you. Protect that truth. Block accounts that trigger doubt. Replace passive scrolling with active engagement. Maybe use that 30 minutes a day to take a walk, call a loved one, or write down your thoughts. You'll be amazed how quickly your mind shifts from "what's wrong with me" to "what's right for me." Now, here's a challenge. This week, take 1 hour of your day and make it entirely device-free. No phone, no background noise, just you. What will you do with that hour? Bake a meal, read a book, sit in the sun, let your mind wander without judgment. The goal isn't perfection, it's connection. Connection to your authentic self. And if you fall short, that's okay. Boundaries are not rigid rules. They're living, breathing practices. Adjust them, evolve them, but don't abandon them. So let me ask you, what if reclaiming your mental space became your greatest act of self-love? What if you stopped apologizing for needing that space? What would your mind look like if it weren't filled with digital noise and other people's expectations? This chapter isn't about eliminating technology. It's about restoring balance. You don't have to be a hermit to stop overthinking. You just have to be intentional. Intentional with your time, your energy, and your peace. You are the architect of your mental sanctuary. Every boundary you set today is a step toward a mind that's lighter, stronger, and unshakable. So take a deep breath. Close this chapter with a decision. Today, pick one small action. Turn off a notification. Create a screen-free hour or unplug from an account, and let that action grow into a revolution of calm. You've got this, and I'm with you every step of the way. Chapter 7. Embracing Acceptance and Surrender. There's a powerful truth we're all born knowing but often forget. Life is not a scripted story. It's not a series of events we can plan, control, or predict. And yet, overthinkers like us, we spend so much energy trying to squeeze this unpredictable, wild ride into the neat little box of our expectations. We cling to what should happen, berate ourselves for what did happen, and exhaust our minds over what will happen. But here's the wake-up call. This struggle to control everything, every outcome, every detail, is the very thing that keeps you stuck in cycles of frustration, fear, and mental chaos. Let me share a story that changed the way I see acceptance. I once worked with someone, a creative mind, full of vision, whose life centered around a project they'd poured years into. Their dream, their identity. The day it all fell apart, they nearly broke under the weight of their own thoughts. What if this defines me? What if I'll never recover? But here's what they didn't realize then. The universe had already written a better story. Once they began to release the need to control the outcome, to stop fighting the current of what was, their energy shifted. They reinvented their work, found a new career path that wasn't just better, it was meant to be. This was radical acceptance, not passive surrender, but active, deliberate trust in the unknown. Radical acceptance isn't about giving up. It's about dropping the mental and emotional weight of what if and stepping into the freedom of what is. Psychologists call this detachment from outcomes, but I like to think of it as letting go of the rope you've tied your happiness to. Imagine you're holding onto a tightrope, swinging between what I want and what reality gives me. Every tug of war exhausts you. But when you learn to release the rope, you stop struggling and start flowing with the winds of life. You stop asking, why me? And start asking, what now? Let me be crystal clear. Acceptance doesn't mean you like the situation. You don't have to like it. You don't have to agree with it. You just have to sit with it, acknowledge it, and surrender the illusion that suffering will change it. Think of it as this. When you resist reality, when you refuse to accept a loss, a delay, a failure, or a life detour, you're essentially trying to argue with fire. You'll burn yourself longer. But when you step into the ash of what is and say, okay, what can I grow from this? That's when healing begins. Let's talk about perfectionism, the shadow side of the struggle. Perfectionism isn't about excellence, it's about control. When you overthink, you're often driven by a need to be flawless, to have flawless results, a flawless life. But here's the truth. Perfection is a myth. It's a trap that steals your joy and keeps you paralyzed, waiting for the right conditions to take action. Radical acceptance teaches you to say, "This is enough." It teaches you to look at your work, your choices, your life, and see the beauty in the imperfect. To stop seeing good enough as a sign of failure and start seeing it as a declaration of peace. So how do you practice acceptance in the messy grind of everyday life? Here's a non-negotiable first step. Stop avoiding uncertainty. Embrace it. Tell yourself, uncertainty is not the enemy. It's the space where growth lives. When doubts creep in, pause and ask, what am I trying to control right now? What energy am I wasting on things outside my power? The answer will shock you. Most of the time, it's not about the big, world-changing things. It's about small, trivial stuff. Try this practice. For 1 week, whenever you catch yourself overthinking, write down the thought and then ask, is this in my control? If it is, take one tiny action. If it isn't, give yourself permission to let it go. This isn't passivity, it's mental hygiene. It's carving out space to focus on what truly matters. Another tool, the acceptance meditation. Set a timer for 5 minutes. Quiet your space. Breathe deeply. Now, bring to mind something in your life that's causing you anxiety. Let yourself sit with it, without judgment. Say, this is hard, this is painful, I am letting it be as it is. Notice how your body reacts. Feel the tension shift as you stop fighting the truth of your reality. This practice rewires your brain. Over time, your default state stops being resistance and starts being grace. The final word on this chapter? Surrender is not defeat. It's radical self. You've spent your life believing that self-criticism keeps you sharp, that being your own harshest judge is the price you pay for excellence. But what if I told you that this mindset is not your shield, it's your saboteur? What if the voice in your head that screams you're not enough is the exact voice dragging you down, fueling anxiety, and making it impossible to move forward? This chapter is your turning point. This is where you begin to replace that inner critic with a new companion, compassionate courage. Let me ask you, when someone you love stumbles, how do you respond? You lean in. You say, it's okay, I believe in you. You meet them in the fall and remind them of their strength. But when you falter, where does your kindness go? That's the gap we're closing. Self-compassion isn't about becoming selfish or soft. It's about treating yourself with the same empathy you so readily offer others. And when you do that, something extraordinary happens. You build a foundation where resilience is born, fear loses its grip, and overthinking begins to dissolve. Scientifically, self-compassion is rooted in 3 pillars: mindfulness, common humanity, and self-kindness. Break that down. First, mindfulness, recognizing pain without exaggerating it or being consumed by it. Second, common humanity, understanding that imperfection is not a personal failure but the shared condition of being human. Third, self-kindness, responding to struggle with warmth and encouragement instead of harshness. These are not abstract ideas, they're actionable tools. Let's bring them to life. Start with affirmations, but not the fluffy positivity you've tried before. This is different. You're not saying, I'm flawless or everything is perfect. That's not truth. It's resistance. Real self-compassionate affirmations are honest, soft, and grounding. When you feel the sting of self-doubt, pause and say something like, this is hurting. I won't run from this. I am safe. Or, this is hard right now. I'm doing my best. My best is enough. These phrases aren't positive thinking. They're compassionate anchoring. They create space to feel what you're feeling without letting that feeling define you. Next, let's talk about inner child work. You may feel surprised. Why the child? Because that's where many of us first learn to hide our needs, to stuff our emotions, and to fear failure. That wounded part of you might be whispering, don't take up space. Don't make mistakes. Don't be noticed. To heal that voice, sit quietly and ask yourself, what did I need but never get? For some of you, it's validation. For others, it's safety or love. Then ask, what will I give myself now? You can say out loud, "I see you, I've been looking for you, you're not alone anymore." This practice isn't about nostalgia. It's about reclaiming the self you buried under years of overthinking and criticism. Here's where it gets practical. Forgiveness is the bridge to a calmer mind. I don't mean forgiveness for others, I mean forgiveness for yourself. That regret you carry over a past mistake? It's not a badge of failure. It's a teacher. When you forgive yourself, you stop replaying the same mental loop. Let me share a story. A friend of mine, let's call him David, struggled with a career decision he later regretted. He spent years in his head, ruminating over it daily until it became a prison. One morning, he wrote a letter to himself from the future, as if he was 80, reflecting back. That letter didn't scold. It said, "You did your best with what you knew. You grew. You are enough." That moment didn't erase the past, but it freed his mind. Now, here's your next tool, the compassionate letter. When stress hits, take out a pen and write as if you were your own best friend, gentle, wise, and unshakable. Let's walk through it. Start by describing what's happening. Right now, I'm feeling overwhelmed because, then validate. It makes sense that this is hard. You care, and that's not a weakness. Finally, offer support. What do you need right now? How can you be kind to yourself? If you hesitate, that's okay. Maybe say, "I don't know the answer yet." That's okay. I'll keep showing up. This isn't dramatic. It's radical self-care. You see, the more you practice self-compassion, the less your mind will spiral. Overthinking thrives in self-judgment, but when you feed your brain the reality that you are worthy, that you are doing the best you can, that your worth is not tied to productivity or perfection, magic happens. You gain clarity. You move forward without fear. So here's your invitation. This week, choose one technique. Start with a compassionate letter. Or try the inner child work. Or rewrite your affirmations with the truth that you are not defined by your mistakes, but by your willingness to rise again. And every time that inner critic whispers you're not enough, whisper back gently, "I am still learning, I am still growing, and I am enough exactly as I am." Remember, a calm mind doesn't come from eliminating challenges. It comes from meeting those challenges with courage, curiosity, and compassion. You are not broken, you are becoming. And every act of self-compassion you practice is a brick in the fortress of resilience and peace. You've got this. Not because you're perfect, but because you're alive. And alive means you still have the power to choose a new path. Let's choose it together, one compassionate act at a time. Chapter 9. Building Mental Resilience. You've come so far on this journey. You've learned to quiet the storm of overthinking, to catch yourself in cycles of rumination, and to anchor your mind in the present moment. Now it's time to build something even more powerful. Mental resilience. This is the foundation that turns progress into permanence and calmness into a lifelong companion. Let me share a story with you. Several years ago, I met a woman who trained for her first marathon while battling a chronic health condition. She missed 3 training runs in her first month. She pulled a muscle, dealt with sleepless nights, and faced constant doubt. But here's what I noticed. She never saw her setbacks as failures. She treated each challenge as a lesson. When her body ached, she adjusted her training plan. When doubt crept in, she wrote it down and let it pass. She didn't chase perfection. She built a system that allowed her to keep moving forward, no matter what. On race day, she crossed the finish line with a time that wasn't extraordinary. But for her, it was everything. Why? Because she had designed a life of resilience, not a single event. This is mental resilience. It's not about never falling. It's about creating a framework that lets you rise again and again. Let's break it down. Mental resilience is built through systems thinking, focusing on consistent habits, not one-time results. Most of us chase goals like they're destinations, but resilience is about the journey. When you overthink, your mind fixates on the future. What if it doesn't work out? Or the past? I messed up again. Resilience anchors you in the process you control today. Here's how to start. First, define your why. Why does mental peace matter to you? Is it to show up fully for your family, To pursue a dream without fear. To feel at home in your own mind. Write this down. Your why becomes your compass when challenges arise. Second, build a habit stacking system. Let's say your goal is to reduce overthinking. You've tried meditation. You've tried journaling. But what if instead of treating them as separate tasks, you wove them into a daily ritual? For example, after brushing your teeth each morning, spend 2 minutes breathing deeply. Then spend 5 minutes writing down one thing you're grateful for. Stack small, sustainable actions onto existing habits. Over time, these micro-choices compound into unshakable resilience. Third, embrace the mindset of a progress tracker, not a perfection tracker. Resilience isn't about avoiding setbacks. It's about how quickly you recover from them. Think of your mind like a tree. Storms will come. Branches may break. But roots, not branches, determine survival. Your daily practices, mindful breathing, emotional check-ins, boundaries, are the roots. When you stumble, return to them. Let me give you a practical example. Imagine your overthinking flares up after a stressful week. Instead of self-criticism, why can't I get this right? Ask, what one habit can I return to? Let me sit quietly for 5 minutes. Let me write down 3 things I accomplished today. This is your system at work. Now let's design your roadmap. I want you to take a blank piece of paper or open a document and write the following. 1. Your core values. What matters most to you? Family, growth, authenticity? These values become your non-negotiables. 2. Your resilience pillars. List 3 habits you'll commit to daily. Example, 10-minute meditation, hydration tracking, a worry journal where you write down anxious thoughts at night. 3. Your setback plan. How will you respond when things don't go as planned? Example, if I miss a meditation practice, I'll do it first thing the next day without guilt. 4. Your vision beyond overthinking. How will mental resilience help you achieve your broader life goals? Example, a calm mind lets me approach my career with confidence. This isn't a static list. Update it monthly. Celebrate tiny wins. Notice patterns. Overthinking thrives in chaos, but resilience grows in structure. Here's the truth. Life will give you curveballs. You'll face days where your mind spirals back into chaos. That's when your roadmap shines. Let me return to the marathon example. My friend didn't wake up on race day and suddenly become strong. She built strength by showing up daily, even when her legs ached. Similarly, you build mental resilience by showing up daily, even when your mind resists. What does this look like in real life? When anxiety about the future strikes, pause and ask, what is one action I can take right now? When self-doubt grows, remind yourself, I've overcome setbacks before. I will again. When you're tempted to ruminate on past mistakes, say, this moment is not my prison. I choose to move forward. Resilience is also about acceptance. You cannot control everything, and that's okay. What you can control is how you respond. When you practice emotional regulation from Chapter 4, when you set boundaries from Chapter 6, and when you embrace self-compassion from Chapter 8, you create a shield against burnout. Finally, let's talk about the long game. Mental resilience is the bridge between where you are now and where you want to go. It's not about being fixed. It's about becoming someone who adapts, grows, and thrives no matter what life throws your way. You're not just learning to calm your mind. You're designing a life where calmness is your default, not your exception. So take a deep breath. Close your eyes for 5 seconds. Imagine yourself a year from now, facing a challenge exactly as it is today. But this time, you don't flinch. You have your roadmap. You have your habits. You have the confidence of someone who has walked through fire and kept moving. This is the power of mental resilience. Your journey to calm doesn't end here. It evolves. And now you have the tools to carry it forward, no matter what comes next. You've come a long way on this journey. From the first chapter where we peeled back the layers of the overthinker's mind to the strategies we've built together, mindfulness, cognitive shifts, emotional mastery, and the courage to set healthy boundaries, you've already transformed how you relate to your thoughts. But now, my friend, we stand at the threshold of something even more profound, the art of living confidently with calm. This is where the rubber meets the road. This is where you don't just practice peace, you become it. Let me tell you a story. There once was a man named Alex who, like many of you, battled relentless overthinking. He was a high-performing professional with a demanding job and a family that adored him, but internally, he was a storm. Every decision felt like a test, every conversation a potential minefield. He'd mastered techniques from earlier chapters, journaling, breathwork, cognitive reframing, but he'd struggle when life threw curveballs. One day, a critical project at work collapsed due to a team mistake. Alex's first instinct was to spiral. This is a disaster. People think I'm incompetent. I'll never recover. But this time, he paused. He remembered the tools. He didn't ignore the anxiety. He acknowledged it, then asked himself a simple question. Is this thought serving me? Is there another way to look at this? He realized the project's failure wasn't a reflection of his worth. He rallied his team, recalibrated the plan, and turned the crisis into a moment of growth. When the project finally succeeded, he didn't let his inner critic steal the victory. He smiled, hugged his wife, and told himself, "You adapted. That deserves respect." This is what confidence born of calm looks like. It's not an absence of fear. It's the courage to meet fear with clarity. Now, let's talk about relapses. You will have them. The mind is a wild beast, and overthinking doesn't vanish overnight. You might wake up one day feeling like you've returned to square one. That's normal. The key is not to see this as failure, but as data. Ask yourself, what triggered this spiral? Which tools did I abandon? How can I reapply the lessons? Imagine you're debugging a software program. You identify the glitch, patch the code, and move forward. Maybe you missed mindfulness practice for a week, buried under work. Return to your breath. Maybe a relationship issue stirred old anxieties. Revisit your emotional mapping exercises. Every setback is just another lesson in disguise. Celebrate the small wins, relentlessly. Did you pause before reacting in a stressful conversation? That's a win. Did you notice a negative thought and reframe it? Another win. Did you choose to rest instead of pushing through exhaustion? A triumph. Buy yourself a flower. Write a success journal entry. Share your progress with someone you trust. You are not a machine that needs to be perfect to be worthy. You are a human being, growing in real time. This chapter demands something deeper, though. It asks you to rewire your relationship with growth itself. Too often, we believe confidence is a trophy we earn when we get it all right. But confidence is not a static state. It's a muscle we strengthen daily. It's knowing that when you feel wobbly, you have a toolbox. It's trusting that you've survived countless storms before and that you'll do it again. Here's a practice to carry forward. Create a growth mantra, a short phrase that anchors you when doubt creeps in. Some people use progress over perfection. Others say, "This too shall pass and I'll be stronger for it." I say, "I am calm. I am capable. I am enough." Repeat this when you're faced with a challenge. Let it be your shield against self-sabotage. And here's the final truth. Confidence is not the absence of uncertainty. It's the freedom to move forward, even when you don't have all the answers. History's greatest innovators, artists, scientists, leaders, didn't wait for clarity. They acted in the face of it. Marie Curie didn't know if her research would doom her health. She pursued truth anyway. Martin Luther King Jr. didn't know if his movement would succeed. He led with courage anyway. You too can walk forward with calm, not because your path is guaranteed to be easy, but because your resilience is deeper than you know. So my friend, as we close this chapter, I ask you to make a promise to yourself. A promise that every day you'll choose to practice what you've learned. When old patterns resurface, return to your breath. When you're tempted to compare yourself to others, look inward with kindness. When growth feels slow, remember that the tortoise always wins. You've already done the hardest part. You've shown up. The next time you feel the familiar tug of overthinking, remember Alex's story. Remember your own victories, no matter how small. Trust that calm is not a destination. It's the ground beneath your feet, the air in your lungs, the quiet strength that lets you rise again and again. Now go, live boldly, speak kindly to yourself. And know this, you are not just learning to stop overthinking. You're becoming the author of a life that is unshakable, unapologetic, and beautifully calm. The world needs that version of you.